Welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or as we like to call it, the Try-F podcast, where we try not to F the podcast up. And today, we are talking about prophecies. I have selected 3 prophets to look at, and we are going to see if we can tell a true one from a false one. And we're going to debate about whether or not we believe in prophecies, and hopefully you will come away agreeing with one of us at least, instead of thinking we're all idiots. That being said, how are you today, Cody?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm sweet. Fantastic. Trevor?
Good.
I'm here.
You're here?
Present.
It's the holiday season.
I prophesy that I'm here.
Well, it's already... Okay. So...
I predict there will be Christmas in a few days.
We're not predicting, we're prophesying.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah,
Prophesy.
get your verb right, Cody.
Sorry.
Gosh. All right, with that being said, we're going to start off with Brandon Biggs. I was impressed with this prophecy, and this actually has triggered a bit of a debate in terms of, can a prophet get anything wrong at all? Can he get some details right, but other details wrong? Is he still a true prophet then? And so he got a lot of things right, but he got one major detail wrong. And he tried to explain what happened, and some people bought his account and other people didn't. So we're going to see what you guys think. So with that being said, let us switch over.
Wait, can I make a prophecy real quick?
Go for it.
I'm going to prophesy that whatever he says is going to be really vague, and you could apply it to, a lot of things. But it's
like the weather.
Like the weather?
I don't know. I've never seen it. I don't know.
Well, we'll see if you're right. And then we'll call you a false prophet if you're not. So.
Sweet.
All right. Okay, here we go.
He said there's going to be a new wave of patriotism coming out, and that's whenever I saw Trump, and I saw a red wave coming out of Michigan, and then I saw Oklahoma, and there was embers of people, and they were all on they had torches all throughout Oklahoma, and they were raising up these torches that looked like fire, and they were bringing forth a new patriotism upon the nation, and it was being birthed, and it just kept spreading like fire all throughout America, all throughout. And I saw Trump rising up, and then I saw an attempt on his life. This bullet flew by his ear, and it came so close to his head that it busted his eardrum.
All right, what was that, Cody?
Did you believe this guy?
I do, because of the eardrum thing.
This guy's full of shit.
Well, let's finish the video, and we can talk about it. And then I'll give you a little more context whenever we're done.
And I saw he fell to his knees during this time frame, and he started worshiping the Lord. He got radically born again during this time frame. I'm talking, people say he's saved now, but he becomes really on fire for Jesus, for what I saw coming. And then I saw people interceding when I saw him winning the presidency through great. The Lord showed me it would go clear into the summer. Great persecution would come on him through the judges and through the law and all these people trying to sue him and all this stuff. But there would be a stop to it, and things would start to break free come toward the fall. And then I saw him winning the election through the Patriots coming out and voting, and then there will be a great economy crash. Yeah. I saw they had a great economy plan, a crash. Yeah. Worse than the Great Depression. And the Lord warned me about this. It would be a great dark time. But I saw paddles coming upon America's soil like a shocking of the soil. And I saw Donald Trump praying in the office of the Oval Office. And he was weeping before the Lord with his hands on his head like this, but he was weeping. And there was ministers and people. I don't know if they were senators or Congress people or whatever. I just saw them pacing and back and forth inside of the White House. And sorry, what is the White House? But it's the Oval Office. Yeah. And they were interceding all inside there, and I could feel the presence of the Lord so strong on this. And then I could see that darkness that was the heaviness upon America with the the financial crisis of what I saw coming, it started to lift above the trees, and I saw the blue and the things coming back out, and the green times and the good times coming back again. But the Lord said it would be forth a time of a season of a shaking, and it would be a shaking to awaken. And in this, this would basically, that He was not done with America. There would be a great revival come, and it's not all doom and gloom. That's what He said. The sky's not falling. There's a time of, it's like people would say, this is judgment. And the Lord said, do not call this judgment. It's not my judgment. It's a correction. There's correction coming.
Okay, so that's the first one. Now, let me give you guys a little bit of context. I wanted to do this by comparing some dates, and I thought the dates were interesting. So, he made this prophecy on March 14th, 2024. Now, the whole legal prosecution thing had already started at this time. So, Trump had taken his famous mugshot in August of 23. So, the legal stuff had already kicked up by this time. However, he hadn't actually been indicted until March 30th. So 2 weeks after this prophecy, that judge in New York indicts him. And then he's convicted on May 30th. And the sentencing was supposed to take place on September 6th, but it was postponed and continues to be postponed. So now there's one more important date that kind of is what I can't remember exactly how he words it. I have it in my notes somewhere. But he says it goes on into the summer, and then something happens to put a stop to it, and it kind of tapers, the legal persecution tapers off in the fall. Now, what happened in July 1st of 2024 is the Supreme Court gives presidential immunity. And that's really what spooked everybody. And then the judge, after some going back and forth, delays his sentencing to September 6th. And then right after that, all the court cases started to implode. So it was late summer, fall, when all the court cases finally tapered off, which in my opinion is consistent with what he said. Now, as for the thing that got everybody's... another thing. The other parts of his prophecy I feel like need to be mentioned, and they haven't been talked about yet. So he talks about a patriotic wave coming out of Michigan. Now that's interesting because Michigan was one of the battleground states during the election. And I don't know if did you guys watch the election that night? No?
Nope.
Bits and pieces.
Bits and pieces. Well, it was very interesting because, obviously Wisconsin, Pennsylvania,
like that.
and Michigan, they were all like the three main battleground states. And people were starting to panic because towards later in the night, the count all stops at around 80%. And then reports of the trucks come up, and everybody in their panels are going, oh, here we go again. They're going to steal it. And then it looks like in those three states all at the same time, Trump maintains like a 200,000 ballot lead. And then just suddenly, you never hear from the trucks again, and the count just picks right back up, and everything's fine. And so, bottom line was he wasn't supposed to win Michigan. People didn't think he was going to win Michigan. I think there was a better chance in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, but Michigan, from what I remember, was one of the least of those three battlegrounds that he was likely to win. I could be wrong about that. Someone could check me. But I find it interesting that he brings up Michigan, and Michigan was one of those three states that was hotly contested, and I kind of feel like something happened around the end of the night that caused those guys to call it off, because I think they were going to try to steal it again. And I think in the end, Trump just had to brought a lead. And so maybe Michigan had a part to play with that, maybe not. I don't know. But it is interesting that he brings up Michigan. I have no idea what he's talking about with embers in Oklahoma. Not the foggiest clue. So I don't think there's a whole lot I can say one way or the other about that. Now,
What's his name?
This is Brandon Biggs.
Okay.
So the Michigan thing, I'm going to chalk up to a maybe. The Oklahoma thing, I'm going to say he's off. I'm going to say he did the legal stuff pretty well spot on. Now, on to the big thing that everybody knows from this prophecy is the assassination. The detail he gets right, and again, this was back in March 14th. The detail he gets right is the bullet going by the ear. And so he says he sees blood coming down the ear, But so he got the bullet by the ear thing right. But what he got wrong was that the eardrum was busted. See, eardrum didn't get busted. The bullet went through the cartilage, and that's what caused the blood. So that's still pretty dad-blame close, but not exact. So what do you make of that? And his response, I thought, was very, very interesting. So let me pull up the response really quick, if you will talk amongst yourselves, unless you got anything to say about it.
I don't really think that Trump actually got his ear shot, firstly.
Okay.
You think he had
You've
the
alluded
ketchup
to
in
this,
his
so,
hand?
I mean, obviously I think the assassination is real, but go ahead and say why you think it didn't happen.
Because there's no hole in his ear. There never was.
Those wounds heal, man. Like, cartilage heals faster than anything else.
Cartilage does not heal. If you take a chunk of your ear off, don't you remember Grandpa's old coon dogs? Their ears were in tatters. That's because the flesh was gone.
What I
Once you
remember
get
is
rid
all-
of cartilage, it does not grow back.
What I remember is back when middle school, they had all those gauges. They would make people stick in their ears. And then, of course, Jess obviously has her ears pierced. The only thing I always hear is, like, you've got to constantly keep stuff in those holes because they heal up after a couple days.
A little bit, but
Remarkably
once you
quick.
stretch them out a lot, dude, they hang forever. I mean,
The earlobes hang, yeah, but, like, as far as, like, piercings and stuff.
Well, the
Through
skin
this part of the
heals.
ear specifically.
But the holes still be there. I mean, you'll still see it.
But also, they have really good doctors now that can
Yeah, there's
Yeah, but why
that.
wouldn't he prove
put
it?
your.
Like,
I don't know.
He did prove it. He showed
'Cause
the
he's
scar in one interview. There's
a
not a hole,
bandage?
but there's a scar.
It's a holy scar.
Did it have a bandage on it?
It had a bandage at first, but he took the bandage off at a certain point and showed some reporter the scar.
Oh, I didn't see that interview. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. I mean, I know that there's been this theory that he faked it, but I'm like, to what end?
I don't know. I see it as representative of the, because I think the same stories happen over and over again with different people and archetypes filling the roles of those stories. So to me, it's just Peter cutting off the ear of the Roman soldiers.
So is
Over
somebody
whatever.
orchestrating the stories though?
No, it's just the way the world works.
Okay, well, I'm confused. So are you like saying that he wasn't really assassinated? Like, I guess how does the fact that he's not assassinated correlated with the archetype thing? Because I think you're right about history echoing. I would agree with you there, but I don't know what that has to do with the
It doesn't
Trump's
repeat, but it
assassination. I'm sorry?
And so it doesn't. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I just don't know what that has to do with the assassination being faked.
Well, he wasn't. You can't call it an assassination because he wasn't assassinated.
Well,
for
the
one.
attempt, yeah.
I just the whole thing is extremely sketch.
In what way?
Well, these things are always extremely sketch.
I
like-
can tell you from my job as a video editor, looking at the sound, there were multiple guns. Like that lone gunman thing wasn't right. I think I've talked about this before on the
Yeah,
show.
we have.
Yeah, but when it
Yeah.
comes to video editing, that pop that goes through the microphone in the shot, that's a plosive. That's the air dispersing in front of the mic. It's like, and then the echo is the sound wave coming off the buildings. And so you've got the bullet zipping past the microphone. That's one sound. You got the echo. That's another sound. And some audio engineer who was using Audacity, which is a program I've used a lot, basically tracked the gap between the echo of the bullet, of the shot, and the actual plosive from the bullet and there's different distances from the first 3 shots have the same distance, and then the 5 shots afterwards are from a different distance, which proves, and as somebody who does audio, I can tell you there's no way to fake this. It proves there were 2 different gunmen. Like, the shots were coming from 2 different locations. There's no other way to produce a gap between the plosive from the bullet and the echo from the buildings. If that gap is different, that means that the gun was coming from a different location, because the echo is bouncing off, the sound waves are bouncing off the building from a different angle and from a different distance. So that's going to give you a wider gap between the plosive and the echo. Mm-hmm. So there were 2 different gunmen there. I can tell you that, just from my experience.
See, now it just sounds like the Kennedy assassination all over again.
It's because it was the CIA or some government agency that did it. Yeah. It wasn't some lone gunman. That's a load of crap. You know, our government was trying to kill the Don, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that they plastered all over, the internet, it was on the roof, was hey, look over here. Yeah. Look at this guy.
Yeah, the patsy.
When the professional was farther out on a water tower that nobody was considering.
Yeah.
They always have a patsy.
Well, I wish I could remember the name of the guy that did the research on it. I'm sure you could look it up. Guy who proved there were 2 gunmen, using audio. But I've used the program he's using. I know what he did, and I know how he did it, and I'm like, yep, he's absolutely 110% right. There were 2 gunmen. There's no way. There's no other way. So...
Yeah. I don't know, dude. It just seems like... It just seems like these stories just, like, they happen. And I don't know if it's, like... It's almost like they have to happen, and then, so it's like... They just take advantage of the energy from it. I don't know. I'm retarded.
No, I understand what you're saying. I feel like we've been on a trajectory. Like, this is going to sound crazy, but I felt like we've been on the path to civil war since Waco.
Since Waco?
Yeah.
Waco, Texas.
Man.
Yeah, I feel like we've been hurtling down this path, and I think we dodged a civil war. Of course, it remains to be seen. They've still got a lot of tricks that they can pull. But I think we dodged a civil war by a 16th of an inch. If Trump had went down, we would have been in the fight. And it would have gone kinetic, I suppose. But because it was really obvious that was the government tried to kill him. And of course, to add insult to injury, Joe Biden calls Trump like a couple days later, and he literally asked the man, he's like, "Why did you turn your head?" I mean, he may as well flash a neon sign that said, "I did it." But anyway, or at the very least, I knew about it. Trump recorded the call, and you can hear his voice. He sounds like a disappointed toddler. Why did you turn your head?
Yeah,
because he
I don't
was
know.
told
It could
to
be
turn
like
his head.
My opinion on the Kennedy assassination is that I think the Kennedys they're a mob family.
That is.
They totally were.
So it's just like the government didn't want the mob to get control of the government, right? So they had to take him out, and I think this is probably kind of the same thing because Trump is a mob boss.
I don't think Trump's a mob boss.
Well, you can think that if you want, but
was it Michael Farnese and some of those other mob guys have been like, we tried to buy him off, we couldn't buy him off. Well, maybe not Farnese specifically, but there were mob guys saying we tried to buy him off. He wouldn't, he wouldn't take a.
Well, he's got his own agenda, though. I mean, he's not going to let somebody else buy him off.
I don't know about that. That's a whole other conversation. The point is, whether it was the Fed or the mob or the Iranians or space aliens, 2 people took shots at the crowd and Trump. And one of those bullets went past his ear. And that's what this guy predicted would happen back in March. So that's pretty impressive.
When was the assassination attempt?
July either 13th or 14th. I got it written down here. I believe it was July
24th.
Was it July 24th? And that was horribly off.
Sorry, July year 24.
Yeah. Somebody can Google it really quick. I thought I had it in my notes, but I do not. I think it was the 13th.
He's noting. He's noting.
Let me look it up. Because we need to know this.
Sorry, I don't have two TVs.
But I mean, so what if, just as Peter cut the guy's ear off, what if that story has to happen on a particular date? So there are people that can get in touch with that information.
The 13th, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like, what if these stories have to happen in the timeline? And if you can get a glimpse of the timeline, I mean, you can be like, yeah, his ear,
Well, yeah, it was okay. So it was the 13th. Who would be getting access to this timeline, and why is it important that these events happen in the particular sequence or what have you?
Well, it's important that they happen in a particular sequence because it's written in the stars. Like, it's like I say the sky is a clock, like, and the stars are for signs and seasons. Like, all these stories repeat themselves in a particular order. And so if Brandon Biggs understands that, he knows that somebody's, like the Peter cutting off the ear story is going to happen on July 13th.
Okay, so you're saying it's not so much a prophecy, it's that he read the stars and anticipated an assassination attempt on a particular date.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I buy that, but okay, that's a possibility. Yeah. Trevor, you got any thoughts?
Yeah.
It's the thought that counts.
Gosh dang it, Trevor.
It's not. It's the works.
Sorry, I'm distracted this evening.
Yeah, I do think Brandon Biggs is like a crystal ball guy, a bullshit artist.
Crystal ball guy, okay. So when you say crystal ball guy, you're not saying a complete charlatan. You're saying somebody who understands patterns and is going off of some kind of pattern recognition.
Yeah.
Okay.
But still a bullshit artist.
Well, in what way? I mean, if the pattern's valid, I don't know if I'd call that BS.
Because if you don't give all the glory to God, then you're a charlatan.
Okay. But he said that God gave him the vision, so is that not giving him the glory?
I don't know. I just hate people that talk like that.
And now we get to the truth of it, ladies and gentlemen.
The Lord showed me.
So it's the demeanor. It's the demeanor that's off-putting.
So if I was to like tell you about a dream I had and changed my voice and was like, "Oh, I prophesy in
If
this
you
way,"
put all that
and
emotion and crap into it, yeah, I'm gonna call you full of shit.
instead of just being like, "Hey, I had this nightmare the other day.
Right.
I
then would
wrote
listen.
it down."
Right.
What would you
'Cause-
even call that? It's not racism. It's like what, like a regionalist or
You can call it
what would you
racism
even
if
call
you want.
that? I don't know.
What's regionalist?
Like, oh, I don't like the guy's demeanor. I don't like the way he acts. It's like I
Okay.
really, really hate used car salesmen. The way they're like, "Hey, I'll give you a car for $19.99."
Right.
It's like I hate that guy. What would you even call that?
I don't know.
There's got to be a word for it.
I'm kind of an extreme case. I mean, we can build on this because, like, I don't listen to music because it makes you. Music is designed to elicit an emotional response. I don't like to feel emotion, so I'm not going to listen to music. I like classical music.
You
but
don't
that's
like
about
to
it.
feel emotion.
No.
You mean like
It's
bad
like, why?
emotion or
It's
emotion
bad.
of any kind?
Any.
Okay.
I mean, like, I like to feel it when it comes up. Like, if it's with my family and we're like in reality together and something happens that makes me feel emotion, I want to feel that. But
Okay,
I don't
so-
want to feel outside influence.
Okay, you don't want to be manipulated into an
Yeah.
emotion. Okay, I understand
Yeah,
what you're saying.
like,
100%.
Okay, I got you.
Like Taylor Swift and
And
her.
people like Brandon Biggs are trying to get you manipulated into an emotional state so that you listen to what they hear with more, or what they say with more intensity.
Is that why you think he has that cadence? It's not his natural demeanor. It's a shtick
Yeah.
to produce an effect.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, that's possible. I'll give you that. That is a possibility.
I got your natural demeanor.
You got your natural demeanor. We're
Yeah,
trying
I
to
don't
have
know
a
what you would call
conversation.
that, like
Huh?
a racist against emotional.
I'm an anti-used
I don't know.
cars salesman.
A sexist.
Anti-cars salesmanist.
I don't even know.
I don't know.
All right. Well,
It's gonna be the next big word though, if we ever think about it.
Let's just go supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
All right, I like that.
okay. All right. Well, let me give the guy's response, and I think it's an interesting response because it does talk. Aside from whether or not he's telling the truth, it does display an aspect of prophecy that I do find very interesting, and I do think it's in the Bible, and it's something to just. It's about prophecy being representational, and how far do you take that?
Yeah.
So.
Well, not to mention.
Well, I'll
how
tell you what,
this-
Cody. If you hated this guy's demeanor, you're gonna despise the guy after this one.
He looks like a beta.
It also comes down
Not
to
this guy. This guy
Oh.
was the
Oh,
only
my
one I
bad.
could. I didn't want to go through all of Brandon Biggs' videos to find his response. This guy already had it pulled up, so I'm gonna shamelessly react to his reaction.
Wait. What's his response to what? What is he responding to?
He's responding to the fact that, okay, he got the ear thing right, but he said the eardrum busted, which isn't what happened.
So he's responding to people calling him out on not getting his prophecy to the T.
Correct. And so he's
I
like,
got you.
he's going, okay, look, the prophecy still came from God, but I screwed up. Here is how I screwed up, is kind of his point. Interesting, though, on this talk of cadence, this might actually justify pulling up Mike Winger's video. I wasn't sure if I was going to bring it up, but since we decided that Brandon Biggs' demeanor is off-putting, that maybe there is something to the demeanor being part of the shtick or something. We'll see. So let me get through this guy's thing first. Oh, just so you guys know, the dude's YouTube channel is Capturing Christianity. So if you want to look for more of his stuff, you are welcome to.
He's
Prophets
pretty good. I
walking
like-
among us. There's this guy named Brandon
So you know who he is, Trevor?
Yeah, I've seen this guy
Okay.
plenty.
Excellent. All right, let me find
Biggs, who
his-
4 months.
I know it's going to be an ad. Why are you...
We're adding.
Here, let me just see if I can find his... here we go. I want to get to his response. It may make me refresh the page because everything is stupid.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right. That's probably good. Okay, here we go.
that we can use to test whether or not this guy is a true prophet. Now, let's go to his next video, his follow-up video, in which he attempts to explain sort of what happened, at least with the eardrum and what's going on with that. So let's watch this and see what he's
Turning
got
my
to say in
camera off, guys.
response.
And
Hey, look, another ad. This game is awesome, by the way. You should try it.
what I said, what about, people keep asking, what about the eardrum? You missed it on the eardrum. You missed it on the eardrum. And it didn't bust. Nothing busted about the eardrum. And I'm going to tell you all, this is what I saw. And I want to say this. I have noticed a lot of times whenever I watch other prophetic videos, if they've missed it, they don't come out and address the elephant in the room. They just kind of bypass it. They push it under a rug, and they don't come out and address it and say, "Hey, I missed it" or whatever. They just kind of act like and ignore it and act like it never happened. And I am a very transparent person. I am never here to try to be false about anything. I tell you what I see, and I pray, and that's what I do. And I see visions. The Lord gives me things.
This is important right here because he explains sort of how he sees things, how he gets these prophecies, and the way that he gets them is through these visions. So he sees things through some sort of vision. Maybe it's almost like you could imagine like a daydream where you're thinking about something else that occurs, and what he claims is that this is coming directly from God. And so he's about to explain in this next clip exactly what he saw and how that's not necessarily inconsistent with the facts, the real facts of the matter. Now, what's important though here is that he says that a lot of prophets don't really try to explain like what's going on with the false parts of their prophecies. And so that's, I think, one thing that is really important and I think good about Brandon is that he's at least attempting to do that. He understands it's important to call yourself out and try to be as truthful as possible and whether or not you are a true prophet. And I mean, the Bible is very clear about.
You're muted, bud. You're
I'm
muted,
a
Gary.
professional.
There you are.
I'm a professional. Okay, I know what I'm doing. Okay, let me ask the question again. Do you think the fact that he is willing to call himself out adds to his credibility?
No, because he didn't really do that. He said it in response to somebody.
Yeah. Plus he's got his YouTube pillow right behind
Right,
him.
dude? He's like identifying with his YouTubery, and he's like, "Ooh, I'm."
Hang on, let's talk about this. So the fact that he's marketing gets rid of his credibility?
To me,
Why?
Yeah. Well, some of the more prophetic prophets that personally I think are right. They're not in it for the views or the money or the hype or the whatever. They're in it for God, which is what they should be in it for, not
Okay,
for themselves.
so to be a real prophet, do I need to go to a cave and marry a goat?
Well, personally, I don't think that God's going to talk to people like him who are in it for themselves.
Well, how do you know he's in it for himself?
because he has a YouTube pillow.
Well, we have a YouTube channel. Like, what I don't
A
understand.
YouTube pillow.
What's the distinction? So he's advertising YouTube
Because he's identifying.
He's identifying with his YouTube channel.
Yes.
Well, maybe he's just excited about having a successful YouTube channel. How does that make
God
him?
doesn't talk to people with false identities.
That's a false identity?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, talk to me like I'm four. Explain this to me.
Like, describing your, like, I actually struggle with this. Like when people are like, oh, you're a welder. Oh, you're a detailer. It's like, sometimes, you know? So it's like him having that YouTube pillow. He's like, I'm a YouTube creator. And like, if you're fully tapped into God, like you're only identifying with his will. That's what Jesus taught.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like when Leonidas talks about his, Spartans, and he asks the other soldiers, what are you? And they respond, I'm a this or I'm a that, with their profession. And then he turns to his guys in that movie, Spartans, what is your profession?
Uh-huh.
And they're all like, I forgot what they say. But they're all in one, line.
In line with the will of their captain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might be in the minority here. I don't agree with you guys. I do understand
You
a little
can.
bit.
You're
like what
allowed to be
talking about.
wrong. That's okay.
Oh, thank you. That's so charitable.
Ooh, ouch.
No, I do understand a little bit what you're talking about. I always hesitate to call myself like a writer for Mind Matters News because it's like kind of I'm like afraid to overstate what I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do
Yeah.
understand that.
That's why Jesus was always like, "It's not my will, but the Father's."
But the thing is
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the right attitude to have. I really am really not. And I've always kind of had a pet peeve with like people who like they get mad at the rich preachers or something like that just because they're rich. Because I'm like, well, how do you expect them to be effective? Money's a tool, and you got to have money to be effective. Like there's these guys that will get mad at the Pentecostals for utilizing TBN, and then they'll simultaneously, because obviously they make a lot of money doing that, and then they'll simultaneously complain about the Pentecostals having such a broad influence in the world. And I'm like, well, do you think the money and the planes you're always complaining about contributed to the broad influence? Like maybe it seems really noble to be in a church of 20 people, not that there's anything wrong with that, but maybe you shouldn't be taking pride in that either, because maybe you're not being as effective as you could be because you're not utilizing the resources out there that would give you a broader appeal to more people. Maybe you're supposed to want to be rich and prosperous and all this because that makes you more effective. I don't think there's anything wrong with being poor, But I don't think it's a virtue to be poor either.
Right. Quick question. I'm not trying to be mean.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
How many prophets in the Bible prophesied what the people wanted to hear?
I don't think many. So you
Not
think the
very
money
many,
thing
yeah.
is like equivalent to selling out? Like the more
Not-
money you
not-
are, the more successful you
not-
have, that means you're selling out.
Not necessarily, because God will, give you what you need. And if God decides that you are going to be very rich, then that's between you and God.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times, people will start to overdo it, and they will eventually turn from God, and
The problem is we don't have a lot of examples of the right thing. Like,
Yeah.
so Jesus is obviously the best one
Mm-hmm.
because everybody knows the story.
Yeah.
So Jesus didn't market. Jesus ran away from people.
But he was very, very popular all the same.
Right.
exactly.
So it's like that's how you suss out the truth.
Well, yeah,
like
but
people-
I mean, come on. What if
people-
somebody had said, well, he only fed those 5,000 people for marketing?
That
Well,
would be
there's-
false because they followed it.
Huh?
And there's probably more like 20,000, because
Well,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
whatever. Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, what if somebody was like, well, he's just doing these miracles to be cool? I mean, obviously he was effective, and he wanted to be effective. So, like, reaching out to people, I don't think is a bad thing, and I don't think people are always going to just reject you out of hand. I think we're missing something, though, here, too, that's important to understand in terms of, like, selling out. Who are you selling out to? Because in all these instances, the common
Mammon.
denominator has been the power structure of men. It's been the kings. It's been the Pharisees. It's been the guys in charge that could provide the influence. And the prophets that were, because obviously Isaiah had to be effective on some level or we never would have got his book. Same thing for Ezekiel, same thing for Jeremiah. But they were popular among the people who believed. They were never popular among the power structure. When you look at the false prophets in Jeremiah, it's because, like, Jeremiah was hated because he wasn't selling the king hopium. The false prophets in that time were selling the king fake good news when the enemy army was going to wipe Israel out any time. But they didn't want to get in trouble, so they just, said, hey, we're going to win, it's going to be great, when it clearly wasn't. But that's the distinction. It's like, yeah, you don't want to sell out, but the problem has not been selling out necessarily to just anybody and everybody. The problem is people tend to sell out to the power structure because they're the ones with the connections and the influence, and that's where things go wrong. Now, yes, you can cave into peer pressure and stuff. That's a thing too. But in the instances in the Bible that we see, they're standing up to the power structure and they're getting favor with the populace. That's how they're able to, get their word out, is through other people.
See, this is why I don't like trying to debate you, Gary, because you do this. And I'm like, that makes so much sense.
Well, kind of. I mean, like, I feel like if there was a modern day Jesus, he wouldn't need to make any social media accounts. There would just
Really?
all of a sudden be videos of him everywhere.
I mean, that could be, but I
because
don't...
people would be like, whoa, this guy's telling the truth. And they would try to cover that up and things like this.
See, I think
The power structure would.
I don't think that's invalid. I think you might be right. I'm just saying it wouldn't be a sin if he did make a social media video.
But he wouldn't. That's because he wouldn't. That's not his shtick. It's not his behavior.
What's the
Jesus
sin,
didn't
though?
do things like that.
Well,
Huh?
he did miracles in public. That's the point of doing a miracle.
Yeah, but he didn't. He wasn't seeking attention.
But he did have a
He
message.
never sought attention.
He did have a message, though. And
Yeah, he did,
things
but he
in front
didn't
of
seek
people
attention.
because he had to get his message out.
He answered questions.
Yes, he answered questions and he did miracles in front of people to get his message out. Now, he wasn't seeking attention for like some sort of ego-driven reason. You're right, but that's motive-based. That's kind of like dependent on the internal person, and I don't know how in the world we would infer that, from somebody's motives or whatever. And I guess my issue is people infer motive based on other people's success, and that kind of irritates me. I'm like, I don't think you can judge somebody's, motives based on how successful they are.
No, you can't. But you can. Well, I'm not going to sit here and talk about how to judge people. That's dumb. But,
Okay.
No,
I think it's a good thing to talk about because I think this is what a lot of Christians deal with is,
Well, what we're trying to deal with is discernment.
Yeah, like how do you
trying to
tell
figure
somebody's
out-
true from false?
Discernment here, and you're right. We don't want to start judging because then.
but it's just like Jesus
That makes
didn't
sense.
seek attention, and by that guy having a YouTube pillow, he's like, look at me, I'm
Well,
seeking attention.
It depends on what you mean by seeking attention, though, because he obviously
You know
went
what
and
I'm saying.
No, I don't, because he obviously spoke in public. Is that not seeking attention?
If the church gave him a banner to get more attention so that he could wave around, would he have used it?
Well, if the church gave him anything, I'd trust it less. I don't like institutions most of the time.
Right. What is YouTube?
YouTube is an institution, that's right.
Okay.
But to
My
counter
point is
you, there is a
standing.
difference between having a banner and standing on the podium of a synagogue or whatever and speaking, because that's what Christ did. He stood in front of a synagogue and read Isaiah and said this prophecy is fulfilled today, and that was one of his first appearances.
Okay.
And
Well, maybe Brandon Biggs is the modern day embodiment of Jesus, Gary.
that's a little
You might have a
dramatic.
point.
That's a little dramatic. Let's not be silly, guys.
I'm just trying to steel man your argument here.
Steel man it, huh? I don't. Okay.
Cody does like to work with steel.
Yep.
I do.
Well, guys, we're about 42 minutes in. We need to break this up. So we will cover Brandon Biggs' response to how he messed up the eardrum thing in the next episode. So, guys, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.